Welcome, treasure hunters and coin lovers. You're about to unlock the secrets behind some of the most jaw-droppingly rare wheat pennies ever struck in US history. Watching this video to the end could change the way you look at pocket change forever. In the world of numismatics, knowledge is everything. The difference between a common penny and a five-figure collectible comes down to what you know, and what others miss, so grab your loupe, clear your mind, and get ready to discover the copper coins that could make you a fortune. Let's start. Number 1. Imagine finding a simple old penny that could change your life. Not just a lucky charm or a neat piece of history, but a coin so rare, so valuable, that it could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. Or even more. Let's talk about the 1944 Lincoln Wheat Penny, a small copper coin with a very big story. It's one of those rare finds that serious collectors dream about, and one that could still be hiding in plain sight. But first, to truly understand why a penny like this could be so valuable, let's rewind just a bit. To the year 1943, in the middle of World War II, copper was desperately needed for the war effort. So in 1943, the U.S. Mint made pennies out of steel coated in zinc. They looked silver, not copper. But somehow, a few bronze planchets from 1942 accidentally made their way into the minting presses. These rare mistakes created the legendary 1943 bronze Lincoln cent, one of the most valuable coins in U.S. history. One of these pennies sold for a jaw-dropping $1.7 million. That's the kind of accidental fortune that makes coin collecting more than a hobby. It's a hunt for hidden treasure. Now let's fast forward to 1944. After the steel experiment of 1943, the mint returned to using copper for pennies. But the story didn't end there. Among the 1.4 billion pennies struck in 1944, one version stands out to collectors: the 1944 Wheat Penny from the Denver Mint. At first glance, it might look like any other wheat penny. Lincoln's profile on the front, the words 1 cent, framed by 2 wheat stalks on the back. But there are certain features and flaws that make the 1944 Wheat Penny worth far more than face value. So what should you look for? Start with the mint mark. Just below the date on the front, you'll see a small letter, D. That's your first clue. It means the coin was minted in Denver. But not all 1944 pennies are valuable. The rare ones often have very specific errors or die characteristics. For example, one key thing collectors hunt for is a repunched mint mark, where the D appears doubled or slightly shifted. This happens when the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, slightly out of alignment. Under magnification, it can look like the letter is shadowed or has a ghostly echo. That kind of flaw turns a common penny into a rare collectible. Another thing to look for is unusual planchet material. A few 1944 pennies were mistakenly struck on steel planchets left over from 1943, instead of copper. These are extremely rare, magnetic, silver in appearance, and far more valuable than their copper cousins. If your 1944 penny sticks to a magnet, you might be holding something extraordinary. Even among the copper ones, some were struck with slightly misaligned dies, causing off-center images, doubling on the lettering, or uneven rim thickness. These are all tiny clues that can add big value. Here's a fun question for you. If you found a coin that looked just like any other, would you know if it was worth more than your monthly paycheck? That's the magic of the mint. Millions of coins pass through our hands every year, and most are nothing special. But every so often, one slips through the cracks, a tiny piece of history that could be your ticket to a collector's jackpot. So next time you're going through your change jar, pay close attention. Look for the date. Check the mint mark. Grab a magnifying glass. A small detail could make a massive difference. Now, let's talk about the numbers, the part everyone wants to hear. Depending on condition and those all-important errors, a genuine rare 1944 Wheat Penny has sold at auction for as much as $64,000 to $127,000. That's right. A single penny, worth more than most new cars. Coin collecting isn't just a hobby. It's history. It's art. And sometimes, it's a once-in-a-lifetime surprise waiting to be found in your pocket change. Keep looking, keep learning, and keep collecting. You never know what kind of treasure is out there, waiting just for you. Number 2, sometimes, the most valuable things in life are hiding right in front of us. A dusty old penny at the bottom of a jar, a coin forgotten in a drawer. These aren't just leftovers from pocket change. They might be treasure in disguise. Today, we're diving into one of those forgotten gems, the 1949 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Now, it might not carry the same dramatic backstory as wartime coins from the early 1940s, but don't let that fool you. The 1949 Wheat Penny holds its own secrets, rare errors, subtle markers, and collectible quirks that have made it a favorite for serious numismatists. If you're a collector or just curious about what to look for, this is a coin worth your attention. Let's start with how to identify one. A genuine 1949 Wheat Penny will feature Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse, his face crisp and firm, with the word, Liberty, to the left and the date, 1949, to the right. If your coin has a small mint mark beneath the date, it'll be either a D for Denver or an S for San Francisco. No mint mark means it was minted in Philadelphia. Flip it over and you'll see the reverse that gives this penny its nickname, the classic wheat ears on both sides of the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, framed by the Latin phrase, E pluribus unum. So far, nothing unusual. But here's where it gets interesting. What makes the 1949 penny valuable isn't just age, it's the presence of rare minting errors, low survival high-grade specimens, and subtle details that can only be spotted by trained eyes, or very lucky ones. One of the first things to look for is die doubling, especially on the obverse. On some rare 1949 wheat pennies, the letters in Liberty or In God We Trust appear slightly doubled. You might also see a shadowy effect on Lincoln's profile or along the edges of the numbers in the date. This kind of doubling isn't damage, it's a result of the die striking the planchet more than once slightly off position. It's called a double die error, and it's pure gold for collectors. Another thing to search for is a repunched mint mark, particularly on 1949D or 1949S pennies. If the mint mark was punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions, it creates a sort of ghost image, an overlapping or shadowed look. These errors are rare, but they're out there, and they boost the coin's value significantly. Then, there are the off-center strikes and broad strikes, where the design is shifted or missing portions. These errors usually happen when the coin isn't aligned properly in the press. A 1949 penny with a major off-center strike, especially if the date is still visible, is a true collector's catch, and let's not forget the condition. The majority of 1949 wheat pennies still floating around are heavily worn from circulation. But if you find one with sharp detail, no scratches, original luster, and a clean surface, that's called mint state, and the difference in value is massive. Here's a tip for new collectors: always examine the rims. A strong, even rim can be a sign of a higher grade coin. Also, use a 10x magnifier to check for those tiny details, like doubling or repunched mint marks, that can turn a common penny into a hidden gem. And now, a question for all you coin lovers out there. If you had to choose between a flashy new coin or an old penny with a mystery behind it, which would you pick? That's the thrill of collecting. It's not just about what a coin looks like. It's about the story it tells. The 1949 wheat penny might seem ordinary, but it represents the end of an era, the final years before the U.S. Mint transitioned away from the wheat design to the modern Lincoln Memorial reverse. It's part of American history, and in some cases, it's more than that. It's a key to a hidden fortune. So how much is a rare 1949 wheat penny really worth? If you've got one with no visible damage, a rare error, or in uncirculated condition, it could sell for $12,000 to $68,000 at auction. Yes, that's right. A 1-cent coin, possibly worth more than a luxury vacation or a down payment on a house. So check your change. Look through those old rolls of pennies. Because even in the world of copper coins, some treasures still shine. Keep hunting. Keep learning. And keep collecting. Number 3. Every now and then, a simple coin turns out to be something far more than pocket change. It becomes a clue, a hidden relic of American history, something that might just be worth a small fortune. And today, we're putting the spotlight on one of the final issues of the beloved Wheat Penny series, the 1957 Lincoln Wheat Cent. Now, if you're a coin collector or just someone who's ever dug through an old jar of pennies, this is a coin you've probably seen before. But don't let its common appearance fool you. Some 1957 Wheat Pennies hold secrets, small, fascinating flaws that make them highly collectible and surprisingly valuable. Let's start with the basics. The 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny features President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, facing right. To the left, you'll find the word Liberty, and to the right, the date 1957. Just below the date, you might spot a small mint mark, a tiny D, which tells you the coin was minted in Denver. If there's no mint mark, it came from Philadelphia. On the reverse, you'll see the classic wheat ears curving around the words 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum arched above. This was the last full year before the switch to the Lincoln Memorial reverse design, which debuted in 1959. So even though the 1957 Wheat Penny was produced in large numbers, it represents the end of an era. But here's the fun part. What makes this coin truly special isn't just when or where it was made, it's what went wrong. Let's talk about errors and how to spot them. One of the most exciting things to look for in a 1957 penny is a doubled die obverse. This type of error occurs when the coin is struck by a die that has been impressed with a misaligned or doubled image. On a true doubled die penny, you might see doubling on the date, the letters in Liberty, or even on Lincoln's eye and jawline. These subtle but fascinating errors often go unnoticed by casual observers, but collectors know just how valuable they can be. Another detail to watch for is a repunched mint mark. On the 1957 D Wheat Penny, some coins were struck using dies that had the D mint mark punched in more than once. When this happens, you can often see a faint shadow or outline of an earlier D just beside or underneath the main one. These repunched mint marks, often abbreviated as RPM, are highly desirable to error collectors. There are also a few known examples of off-center strikes from 1957. This happens when the blank planchet isn't properly seated in the press, resulting in a coin where the design is shifted to one side. A 1957 penny with 10% or more off-center misalignment, especially if the full date is still visible, is a fantastic find. Then you have die cracks, cuds, and lamination errors, each the result of minting flaws that create raised lines, missing details, or flaking surfaces. These might not sound dramatic, but for collectors, even small defects can make a coin stand out. Here's a tip for anyone new to the hobby. Grab a 10x magnifying loupe and examine every inch of the coin, especially around the date and mint mark. Look closely at Lincoln's eye, his jawline, and the word Liberty. If anything looks doubled, shifted, or unusual, you might be looking at a coin that's far from ordinary. Now, a question for you. If you had a coin that millions of others ignored, but yours had just one tiny mistake, would you spot it? That's what makes this hobby so rewarding. You're not just collecting coins. You're collecting moments in history, rare slips of the mint's machinery, and tiny errors that turn a common cent into something truly extraordinary. Despite the fact that over 1 billion 1957 D Wheat pennies were minted, very few have survived in high-grade condition or with rare errors intact. That's what makes the hunt so exciting. And finally, let's talk about value. The part that makes everyone lean in a little closer. A 1957 Wheat Penny with a dramatic doubled die, a crisp repunched mint mark, or a mint state grade with exceptional luster can sell for $12,500 to $60,000 at auction. Yes, you heard that right. A single penny, one you could find in a roll or a jar, might be worth more than a brand new car, so don't overlook those old coins. Grab your magnifier, check your change, and never underestimate the power of a penny. Especially not one from 1957. Keep collecting, keep searching, and who knows, your next great find could be hiding in plain sight. Number 4. There's something timeless about the sound of loose change, coins jingling in your pocket, forgotten in drawers, or tucked away in old jars. But every so often, one of those coins isn't just old, it's rare. and one of the most intriguing pieces to look out for is the 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny. It might look like just another penny from the past, but the truth is, some of these coins are worth far more than a single cent hidden in plain sight. A 1953 Wheat Penny with the right features could be one of the most valuable finds in your collection. Let's take a closer look at this humble yet historic coin, and why it's got collectors on the lookout. The 1953 Wheat Penny features the classic design. Introduced in 1909, Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, with the words, "In God We Trust," arching above his head, Liberty, to his left, and the date, 1953, to his right. Below the date, you might notice a small letter, either a D for the Denver Mint or an S for San Francisco. If there's no mint mark, it was struck in Philadelphia. On the reverse, you'll see the iconic wheat ears curving along each side of the words 1 cent and United States of America. At the top is E pluribus unum, meaning out of many, one. Now, 1953 pennies aren't exactly rare by mintage numbers. Over 700 million were struck across all three mints. But not all 1953 pennies are created equal. A select few contain rare errors, striking anomalies, or superior condition, making them incredibly valuable to the right collector. Let's talk about how to spot one. First, get yourself a good magnifying glass or a coin loupe. 10x magnification works great. Start by closely examining the date and the lettering. Some 1953 pennies were struck using dies that developed imperfections, leading to double die errors. These are most commonly seen on the date or in the word Liberty. If the numbers look slightly doubled or shadowed, you may have found something special. Next, look for repunched mint marks, especially on 1953D and 1953S coins. These errors happened when the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, but not perfectly aligned. A repunched D or S can look like a slight doubling or offset, and collectors absolutely love them. There are also examples of off-center strikes, where the coin was misaligned in the press. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, and whether the date is still fully visible, these errors can be worth a lot more than face value. Another interesting detail to check for is die cracks, raised lines across the coin caused by stress in the minting die. While minor cracks aren't always valuable, dramatic ones, especially those affecting Lincoln's face or the coin's lettering, can catch a collector's eye. And here's something even more exciting. A few 1953 pennies have surfaced struck on the wrong metal planchet. These are rare and were likely struck on leftover blanks from foreign coin production or earlier issues. If your penny looks lighter or different in color, or it weighs less than the standard 3.11 grams, it might be worth investigating. Here's a tip for new collectors. Always check the coin's luster and strike quality. A 1953 penny in uncirculated condition, meaning no wear, full detail, and original mint shine, is worth considerably more than one that's been through decades of circulation. Coins graded mint state by professional grading services are where the real value begins. Now for a question that gets collectors thinking. How many potentially rare coins have passed through your hands without you ever realizing it? It's a little mind-blowing, isn't it? That's what makes coin collecting more than a hobby. It's a lifelong treasure hunt, where history, detail, and rarity collide. The 1953 Wheat Penny marks a period when America was post-war and on the move, yet still clinging to old traditions, like the wheat reverse, which would vanish just 6 years later. So owning a coin like this isn't just about its value. It's about holding a small, copper snapshot of American life. And now, let's talk about the part everyone's waiting for. Depending on the condition, mint mark, and error type, a rare 1953 Wheat Penny can sell for $14,000 to $67,000 at auction. Not bad for a coin that started out worth just 1 cent. So the next time you come across a 1953 penny, don't just toss it aside. Take a closer look. What might seem ordinary could be hiding something extraordinary. Keep your eyes sharp, your coins safe, and your curiosity alive, because you never know when the next penny you find might be worth a fortune. Number 5. Sometimes the smallest, simplest things tell the biggest stories. And few things prove that better than a single penny. especially when that penny is the 1950 Lincoln Wheat cent. At first glance, it's just another old coin. A familiar face of Abraham Lincoln, a date most people wouldn't think twice about, and a little D under the year that's easy to overlook. But for collectors and coin enthusiasts, that 1950 Wheat penny is a doorway into history, and sometimes, into serious value. So let's unlock what makes this penny special. Because knowing how to spot the right coin, and the right errors, could turn your next find into a prized possession. The 1950 Wheat penny was minted in Denver, with over 334 million pieces produced. That's a big number. And it means most of these coins are still common in circulation. But here's the trick. While most are ordinary, a rare few were struck with mistakes. The kind of mistakes that collectors are willing to pay thousands for. Let's start with how to spot one. Like all Lincoln Wheat cents, the 1950 features Lincoln's profile on the obverse. "In God We Trust" curves across the top, "Liberty" sits to the left, and the year, 1950, appears on the right, with a small D mint mark just beneath it. The reverse shows the classic wheat design, 2 stalks framing, 1 cent, and United States of America, with E pluribus unum sitting above. That's the basic blueprint. But it's what goes wrong with that blueprint that makes things exciting. One of the biggest things collectors are looking for is the repunched mint mark, or RPM. On the 1950 penny, several examples have been found where the D was punched into the dime more than once, but in slightly different positions. This creates a doubled or shadowed look on the mint mark, especially under magnification. And yes, these are highly collectible. Then there's die deterioration doubling, often seen on worn-out dies that cause the letters or numbers to appear stretched or slightly doubled. While not as valuable as a true doubled die, it's still worth noting, and adds character to the coin. Some 1950 pennies were struck slightly off-center, or have broad strikes, where the design spills beyond the normal rim due to a collar issue during minting. If the date and mint mark are still visible, these errors can be worth a lot more than face value. And here's another tip for keen-eyed collectors: check for die cracks. These small raised lines are caused when the minting die itself begins to fracture. While minor cracks are common, large ones, especially those that look like they split Lincoln's head or run through the lettering, are rare and can boost the coin's value. Another potential error is a BIE die break, named after a small die crack that forms between the B and E in Liberty, making it appear like there's an extra I. It's a fun little quirk that collectors love to find, and 1950 examples with this break are out there. Now, let's talk condition. Because even without a dramatic error, a mint state 1950 penny, with full luster, sharp details, and no signs of wear, is a collector's dream. Coins in grades MS65 or higher are increasingly hard to find, especially those with that brilliant red copper tone. Here's a collector's tip: always weigh your penny. A standard wheat cent should weigh about 3.11 grams. If your 1950 penny is significantly lighter, it could have been struck on the wrong planchet, which is an extremely rare and valuable error. And now, a question for all of you watching: have you ever taken a closer look at a coin you thought was ordinary, only to realize it had something special? That's the beauty of coin collecting. Every coin has a story, and sometimes it takes a trained eye, or just a little luck, to uncover it. The 1950 Wheat penny comes from a time when post-war America was booming. It circulated through a growing economy, passed through thousands of hands, and carried the weight of everyday life. And now, decades later, it's part of our numismatic treasure hunt. So, what is a rare and valuable 1950 Wheat penny actually worth? Depending on the era, condition, and demand, these coins have sold for $15,275 to $68,000 at major auctions. Not bad for a coin that once lived quietly in someone's pocket. So check your change, examine those rolls, and dig through your old collections, because that next copper penny just might be the one that tells a story, or changes yours. Stay curious, stay sharp, and happy collecting. Number 6. It's hard to believe that something as small and ordinary as a penny could carry the weight of history. But the 1945 Lincoln Wheat Penny does just that. This little copper coin passed through the hands of soldiers returning from World War II, families rebuilding their lives, and children buying candy for a single cent. But today, it's not just a piece of history. It could also be a hidden treasure. Welcome back, collectors and curious minds. Today, we're diving deep into the 1945 Wheat Penny from the United States of America. And trust me, by the time we're done, you'll never look at your spare change the same way again. The 1945 Wheat Penny features the familiar face of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, framed by the motto, "In God We Trust." Above, Liberty, to the left, and the date 1945 to the right. Flip it over, and you'll see two curved stalks of wheat standing tall on either side of the words, 1 cent, and United States of America, along with E pluribus unum. At the top, it's the final stretch of the Wheat Penny era, which ended in 1958. But what sets the 1945 edition apart isn't just the design, it's what could be hiding in plain sight. So how do you spot a valuable 1945 penny? Start by checking the mint mark, located just under the year on the obverse. If there's no mint mark, it was minted in Philadelphia. A D means Denver and an S means San Francisco. All three mints produced 1945 wheat pennies, with Philadelphia leading the way at over 1 billion coins. But as any collector knows, mintage numbers are only half the story. You want to look for errors. And this is where things get interesting. One of the most sought-after features in the 1945 Wheat Penny is a doubled die, especially a doubled die obverse. This means that during the minting process, the die struck the coin more than once in a misaligned way, causing parts of the design, like the date, the word Liberty, or even Lincoln's eye, to appear doubled. These are not easy to spot without magnification, so grab a 10x loupe and study the details closely. Another major error is the repunched mint mark, particularly on 1945D and 1945S coins. This happens when the mint mark was punched into the die more than once, but not quite in the same place. Look for a shadow or slight doubling of the D or S under the date. These subtle flaws can add serious value. There are also known die cracks and cuts on some 1945 pennies. Die cracks appear as raised lines, while cuts are blobs of metal usually along the rim, caused by broken pieces of the die. These types of errors are unique and can attract niche collectors who love flawed beauty. You might also come across off-center strikes, where the design isn't properly centered. If the error is dramatic enough, and the date is still fully visible, these off-center coins are highly collectible. Now here's a little collector's tip: weigh your coin. A standard 1945 wheat penny should weigh 3.11 grams. If yours is significantly lighter, you may have a planchet error, possibly struck on the wrong type of metal, or on a foreign blank. These types of off-metal errors are extremely rare, but when found, they can be worth a small fortune, and if you're lucky enough to find a coin with full red luster, meaning it looks like it just came out of the mint, with that bright copper shine, it can multiply the value significantly, even without any major errors. That's why proper storage in a dry, airtight coin flip or holder is essential for long-term preservation. Now, here's a question to challenge your inner numismatist. With over 1 billion 1945 wheat pennies minted, how many still exist in pristine, untouched condition? How many have survived the decades without wear, corrosion, or scratches? The answer: not many. And that's why finding one is a moment every collector dreams of. The 1945 wheat penny is more than just a coin. It's a relic from a pivotal time in American history. It's copper from the post-war era, struck before the age of modern coinage, before zinc pennies, and before the wheat reverse gave way to the Lincoln Memorial. So, what's the value of this historic coin? If you happen to find a rare 1945 wheat penny with the right combination of mint errors and top-grade preservation, it could be worth $20,400 to $90,000 at auction. All from a coin that started out as 1 simple cent. So check your jars, your old rolls, your grandparents' keepsakes. You never know what treasures are hiding just beneath the surface. Sometimes, history and value come in copper. Keep searching, keep collecting, and remember, one coin can change everything. Number 7. What if I told you that a coin from 1954, a single copper cent minted in Denver, could be worth thousands of dollars today? You might glance at your change jar a little differently. Welcome, coin lovers and collectors. Today, we're going to dig deep into the story of the 1954 Wheat penny. At first glance, it may look like just another old coin from a pocket long forgotten. But beneath that copper surface lies the potential for hidden errors, rare varieties, and serious value. Let's start with the basics. The 1954 Wheat penny features the classic Lincoln portrait on the obverse, with "In God We Trust" above his head, Liberty to the left, and the date 1954 to the right. Just below the date, you'll see a small D, indicating it was minted in Denver. Over 251 million of these pennies were struck that year at the Denver Mint, so yes, they're common. But coin collecting isn't about quantity. It's about quality, rarity, and the thrill of the hunt. So how do you spot the 1954 Wheat pennies that are actually worth something? First, examine the mint mark closely. Some 1954 pennies were struck with a repunched mint mark, or RPM. That means the D was punched into the die more than once, but slightly misaligned, creating a doubling or ghost image of the mint mark. These are hard to spot with the naked eye, but under magnification, they become clear and extremely desirable for collectors. Another error to look for is die doubling, where the die itself shifted slightly during production. This can cause parts of the design, like the date, Liberty, or In God We Trust, to appear doubled or distorted. True double die varieties are rare, and when certified, they can dramatically increase a coin's value. There's also the possibility of die cracks, small raised lines caused by fractures in the die. On a 1954 penny, a crack through Lincoln's head or across the reverse can make the coin more interesting and appealing to certain collectors, especially if the crack is pronounced. You may also encounter a BI error, a type of die break that creates the appearance of an extra I between the B and E in Liberty. This quirky and collectible error is popular among wheat penny enthusiasts, and several BIE varieties have been found on 1954 cents. Another thing to look for is off-center strikes. These occur when the coin blank isn't aligned properly during minting. If your 1954 penny is noticeably off-center but still shows a full date, you might be holding a valuable error coin. Now here's a collector's tip. Color matters. Lincoln wheat cents were struck in bronze, and over time, their surface can turn from red to brown. Uncirculated pennies that retain their original red luster, known as red coins, are far more desirable than brown ones. Red coins in mint state can command significantly higher prices at auction, and of course, preservation is everything. A 1954 Wheat penny with full, sharp details and no signs of wear can be a gem in any collection. Look closely at Lincoln's cheek and jaw, and check the wheat stalks on the reverse. Crisp lines and full separation mean your coin has been well preserved. Now, here's a question to test your numismatic instincts. What's more valuable? A 1954 penny with a minor error and some wear, or a flawless, bright red specimen with no error but a perfect strike? The answer depends on rarity, demand, and grade, but in many cases, condition can outweigh the error. That's why having both sharp eyes and patience can make all the difference in this hobby. The 1954 Wheat penny reminds us that hidden value doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's subtle, a small doubling, a tiny break in the die, a mint mark punched twice. And when you find one, that discovery can turn an ordinary penny into an extraordinary piece of American history. So how much can a rare 1954 penny be worth? Depending on the error, condition, and grade, a 1954 Wheat penny can sell for anywhere from $7,600 to $51,000 in today's coin market. That's a huge leap from a single cent. And a great reason to check your old coin rolls, penny jars, or family keepsakes. Thanks for watching, and if you love stories like these, make sure to like, subscribe, and keep collecting. You never know when the next penny you pick up might just change your life.